Welcome and thank you for attending the Black History Matters series presented by the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum. My name is Victoria Basurto, and I am a current senior at Colgate University, located in Hamilton, New York, as well as an intern with the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum. I will be facilitating the presentation of 28 videos that will be released throughout the month of February 2021 and that you can view on our YouTube channel or on our website. I will now lead you through some introductory statements. The National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum is located in Peterborough, New York, in the building that you can see on the screen where the inaugural meeting of the New York State Anti-Slavery Society was held in 1835. NIHOF's mission is as follows. The National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum honors anti-slavery abolitionists, their work to end slavery and the legacy of that struggle, and strives to complete the second and ongoing abolition, the moral conviction to end racism. NAHOF has worked in coordination with the Gary Smith Estate National Historic Landmark, which is also located in Peterborough, New York, to create the Black History Matters series. The following statement is the purpose of Black History Matters. You can read along on the screen. NAHOF supports racial justice movements seeking to address racial inequality, given their resonance with NAHOF's mission to address the second and ongoing abolition, the moral conviction to end racism. NAHOF believes a significant number of Americans do not understand the current racial justice protests due to their unfamiliarity with 4 centuries of Black American history, because this history was either excluded or taught inadequately in schools. NAHOF knows that education is a powerful step towards ending racism, and that understanding the history of the enslavement and dehumanization of Black Americans provides critical context for the ongoing racial justice movements and the persistence of racism in America. Given NAHOF's commitment to strengthening knowledge of history as one route to confront racism, NAHOF will present Black History Matters, a series of crash courses covering some examples of neglected topics in Black American history throughout the month of February 2021. I'd like to now introduce our first presenter, Gregory L. Riley Sr. Mr. Riley Sr. is a full-time faculty member in the Criminal Justice Department at Norwalk Community College. Prior to that, he was an adjunct instructor in criminal justice for 22 years at NCC. He is a retired community police officer from Norwalk Police Department. Mr. Riley also served in the NPD Youth Division and as a school resource officer at all 3 Norwalk high schools. He has national certifications in DARE, GREAT, Field Training Officer, Cultural Diversity, Youth Dating Violence, Safety Nets, Street Gangs, Terrorism, Automobile Theft, Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. He is also a former federal corrections officer at Danbury Federal Institution. Mr. Riley has served as a member of the board of directors of the SUNY Plattsburgh Alumni Association. He was named a distinguished visiting alumni by SUNY Plattsburgh. Mr. Riley was also a member of the board of directors for the National Black Police Association in Washington, D.C., where he served as a national information officer. He is the co-founder of the James A. Wilson Scholarship at SUNY Plattsburgh for gifted African American students. He is a graduate of the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center and State of Connecticut Police Officer Standards and Training. Mr. Riley is a graduate of Oneida High School and SUNY Plattsburgh, where he received his Bachelor's of Arts in Criminal Justice. He is presently working towards receiving his Master's in Arts in Criminal Justice. I'd like to now introduce our second presenter, Max Smith. Max Smith is a founder and co-chair of the annual Peterborough Emancipation Day, held at the Garrett Smith Estate National Historic Landmark, the first Saturday of August. Smith is a member of the Cabinet of Freedom, the governing body of the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum, and his rich and passionate musical voice is regarded highly. A former mayor of the city of Oneida, Smith is descended from enslaved families who came to Peterborough, New York. I'd like to now invite Mr. Riley and Max Smith to begin their discussion on Black law enforcement.
It's a real pleasure, Professor Riley, to have you here speaking with us today. We look forward, certainly I look forward to hearing some of the perspective that you have on this particular topic. after all of your years of experience in policing and in community policing. So it'll be very stimulating for me to hear your perspective. Without further ado, I guess the impetus for this, from our perspective, has been there's been a lot of discussion and certainly a lot of observation about this issue of policing. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement. We saw huge numbers of people calling attention to this issue throughout the summer. I would point out the vast majority of those were nonviolent, but in some instances, people resorted to some very deplorable kinds of acts. But from your perspective, as someone who's been in law enforcement as long as you have do you feel personally that there is an issue here, that there is bias in policing?
That's good. That's a good question, and thank you for the introduction. There is bias in policing. Sad to say. If you put, let me just say, if you cannot expect not to have bias in policing when you have the racism in this country that you have, you cannot expect to have bias not in policing when you look at the historical aspect of how blacks were treated from the day we stepped on this land, where we were put on this land, I should say, in 1619, when they brought us off the ships in Virginia. You have to look at the whole historical aspect of the whole thing. You have to go all the way back to 1619. If you go all the way back to 1619, you can understand, and this is a historical lesson that we don't teach in schools. And if you go back to 1619, look how we were treated when we first got here, then you understand why we're here at this same spot 401 years later. We've always been criminalized, blacks. We've always been criminalized. You start with slavery. We started at the bottom, where we're at the totem pole. We were doing the work of the master. Then once we got freed, and we were supposed to get our 40 acres and a mule, we never got our 40 acres and a mule. What we got was Jim Crow. We got sharecropping. Okay. Once we got out of sharecropping, then we got into even the deepest discrimination of white, and where whites could go, where blacks could go, and it just moved on from there. And we've always been America's boogeyman. You can look at the Willie Horton incident. You can look at things that happened in the past. You can look at when you watch TV and you watch a crime, you see crime on TV and they put the suspect up. It always seems that we're the suspect. As a black man, I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care if you walk down the street and you're within proximities. Some whites will cross the street. Some people will avoid you. This is something that's been set up in America. This is a system, and it's a system that's hard to break because people it's been indoctrinated. Just like you see these individuals who went to the Capitol recently and stormed the Capitol. If you look at that, and you look at that, centers around race, religion, and economics. Okay, and that whole Confederate flag being brought into the Capitol, that should be a clear indication to everybody what this really about. If you're African American, if you're a person of color, that Confederate flag lets you know, stay in your place. This is what we think of you. And as recently as 2006, when I was with the police department, the FBI issued a report, and you can find it online. And they issued a report to all police departments: beware of white supremacists coming into your police departments. Now, you think that's shocking, but that's nothing new. I came on the police department in 1978. I could have wrote that report for you. That's not hard. I saw some people who had those tendencies. So there is racism in policing. Is there a lot? I wouldn't say it's overwhelming. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say all police officers are racist, but it is there. It is there.
Wow, it's interesting, most interesting. So across your experience, and you had experiences which showed you that it was there and that it does exist. How then do you feel about the Black Lives Matter movement and efforts to bring attention to the interactions between law enforcement and, and African Americans? Do you feel like that movement is a good thing? It's a positive thing? Or do you really think that maybe we should be taking a different approach, or maybe using multiple approaches?
Well, we took different approaches, and where did that get us? Where did that get us? So the Black Lives Matter movement stemmed from the generation below us, below you and I. This generation that came, they said, listen, we followed what you asked us to do, but no, this is not working what you did. So this younger generation has decided to take the ball and carry it. And I commend them for that, because this would have never, what you see now would have never happened. And if you look at these peaceful marches, and I would admit some people got a little carried away, and those were criminals and they should be arrested. But if you look at the majority of this protest, and you look at it seriously, you don't see all brown faces anymore, all black and brown faces. You see a great mixture of white faces. And to me, that's optimism. I'm very optimistic. And you see young people, college students who are out here, and they see it. And they see the inequities of how people of color are treated. And that's promising. That is really promising. And the Black Lives Movement should be commended for that. And I'm optimistic on one side, and there are some days that I'm not so optimistic. But it's a positive thing. If you're asking me if Black Lives Matter is a positive thing, yes, it is.
Okay, I was shocked and pleased to see that the Black Lives Matter movement that took place over the course of the summer involved millions of people. Frankly, the greatest expression of solidarity around a civil rights issue in the history of our nation. What moved me to tears as I participated in the 2 or 3 events that I participated in was the fact that they were taking place in largely white communities. And when I say largely white, I'm talking 95% white communities. The majority of the participants were white. And I saw that myself as an expression of the fact that when we got civil rights in terms of Lincoln's emancipation, it came at the end of a gun. But America never atoned for its original sin. They never said, as a group of people, as a society, we recognize this and we're willing to change, and we think it's wrong. To me, the summer of 2020, we saw that statement from millions of people in our nation. But as we move forward, are there, from a perspective of someone who is embedded and has been embedded within Black communities, is there something that you think that we can or should be doing to even engage more in this effort to bring change?
I'm going to say something a lot of people probably won't understand. When I first came to the police department, I was in community policing. An old timer, Black guy, said to me, he said, "You can't be part of the solution if you're not within the organization." Okay? And I thought for a moment what he said, and what he meant, what he said to me, what he was saying to me was, you can't change police departments unless you have people of color within the police department. All right. So when I went out recruiting, I would try to get people of color and women to come to the department. And that was so hard because people would say, well, I don't want to arrest my friends, or I'm not a snitch. And you would hear that. And it was so hard to recruit people of color or women to come to the police department because they had a negative perception of policing. Now, the second thing that you need to do is you need to go out and recruit people with not a warrior mentality. That's what they call it, a warrior mentality, where they go out on the street and they think that the public is the enemy. You need to find people that have a service mentality. where policing is not a difficult job. It's about conversation. It's about listening. That's what policing is. Policing, 90% of policing is going to somebody's house and the dog is barking next door, and the dog has been barking all week. Okay? You watch these police shows and you're confused. Policing is about going to a car accident and helping people find out who's at fault. Okay? Policing is not that difficult. It's a communications job. It's a job where you're listening to people and you're presenting yourself in a professional manner. Okay, 10% of the time, okay, you're making arrests, but a lot of these shootings that you see, let me explain to you about what they call tactics, tactical. If you look at a lot of these shootings that you see, I'm going to give you the 3 basic things in tactics. I'm not giving you the whole tactical thing. I don't want to share it. You learn that, but there's 3 things. And anybody who's listening to this, you should write this down. Cover, concealment. Cover is something that you can go to and hide behind, and a bullet cannot penetrate, like a car, police car. Concealment is where you go, you hide behind something, and a bullet can penetrate it. Then the second thing of tactics is distance. You keep your distance from the perpetrator, and the third thing, distance, is time. Time. If you're in a situation, a hostage situation, give the person time. Step back. You don't have to charge into everything. And when you look at these shootings and you take these three aspects that I gave you, you'll understand the officer has made a mistake somewhere in one of the 3 points. If you look recently at some of these shootings, I'm trying to think of one maybe where the man ran to the car and his kids were in the back seat of the car and they ended up shooting him like 8 times because they said he had a knife, but they never knew he had a knife until he got to the car. Now, the man is running to the car. It's very simple. All you do is tackle the man. There's 2 of you. Why? How does he get to the car? I mean, there's a lot of things that there's tactically. You look at a lot of these shootings, and it's poor training. It's poor training. I was lucky where we had excellent training. Okay, we had excellent training. But a lot of these departments, they all don't operate under the same standards, particularly when you get to the Midwest and the Southern states. Their standards are different. So we need to address our recruiting. Who are we recruiting? Are we recruiting the warrior type or are we recruiting the service type? And you don't need a college education to be a police officer. You need to know how to communicate to people. And a lot of times, a lot of these cities are suffering under huge financial burdens from police departments where officers have made mistakes and they're paying out millions of dollars for simple cases. So I would say recruitment is important. And that's where I would start, recruiting and training if you want to get better police.
Boy, that is so good to hear. One of the things that I'm hopeful that the new administration is going to look at is some national standards for policing, so that there is more uniformity across the various departments, one state, one county, even one city to the next. I've heard that it's pretty typical for someone maybe to have a problem in one location and lose their job in that location, and they simply move 50, 100 miles away or move to a new state and get rehired.
Well, it's interesting you just said that, because today I was looking at the New Haven Register. On the front page of the New Haven Register, there's an article where an officer from a town of Shelton, Connecticut, was fired for sexual harassment. He ended up going to another department, Fairfield, Connecticut, and got on the job. And they were talking about certification and can you nollie somebody's certification and those type of things. And that's a perfect case right there. And there it is right there on today's front page paper, the New Haven Register, page 1. So some of these people can go, if you don't decertify them, because once you go to the academy, you get certified. And if they don't decertify you, and in Connecticut now, we have what they call a national bank. We put our people who get decertified in a national bank, but your police department has to decertify you first. You have to go to the they call it POST, Police Officer Standard Training Council, and you have to apply to have this person certified. If you don't, this person can go to another job or another state. So that's something that you need. That's a good point.
Have you noticed what's happening in New York State, what Governor Cuomo is doing with regard to that? It's just come to my attention because they're now reaching out. The governor sent, as a result of this Black Lives Matter movement, he sent a mandate to every police department in the state, sheriff's departments, local community departments, city departments. Everyone has to reevaluate their department standards with an eye toward bias or violence toward people of color or other issues that arise out of that. And it has to be done with a board of people from the community. Anyone who doesn't complete that by the end of 2021 will lose all of their state funding.
That's interesting. We had just here in Connecticut, after much to did a police accountability bill, and which the police were in uproar about. But it's probably the toughest police accountability bill in the country, and it caused a lot of police were protesting about it, but it set some new standards. Once you can no longer in Connecticut ask a person when you stop them, can you ask permission to search their car if you don't have probable cause? Whereas in the past, officers would ask somebody, "Can I search your car?" and the person would say yes, but we don't do that here anymore. You can't ask that. That's illegal. We have a standard. We have an Alvin Penn Act in which after every stop, you have to, before you can clear your call from the computer, you have to note the race and the ethnicity of the person that you stopped. We keep statistics of that at the end of the year to find out, what departments are doing in regards to stopping people of color. So it's a start. But you really need to. This is a serious problem. It just goes back to who you're recruiting, and what the culture starts with the CEO, the person at the top. And if the person at the top is not deeming that culture properly, then you have chaos.
Yes. I've been fortunate in my life. I mean, I'm from Oneida here in central New York. Minorities are a small subset of the greater population in Madison County. But because we're a rather small rural community and we have some unique aspects to us, policing has been, on the whole, while there might be some bias, it's not a bias that you overtly feel at every traffic stop or whatever. And in that regard, I'm very thankful. I was stopped, however, for what I thought was a rather minor infraction, maybe 6 years ago in Miami. I was driving a large truck there, helping out my sister. I was unfamiliar with the city, so I was trying to use a GPS, and I turned onto a roadway, which was a 4-lane roadway within the city itself, but it was not, it was illegal to drive trucks on the road. It was just passenger traffic. And interestingly enough, the gentleman who stopped me or pulled me over, he had gone ahead of me and flagged me over, was a Hispanic officer. And from the time he came to the window of the truck, he was furious. I'd never encountered a police officer who was so overtly angry. And I tried to tell him, I mean, he basically treated me as if I was some kind of convicted felon. And at one point I told him that I was a mayor from a small town and I was visiting Miami. He refused to believe that, wanted me to show me my license. I gave him my New York State license, and he looked at me and he said, "If I find that you've got another license, I guarantee you I'm dragging you out of that truck and you are going to jail." I did end up out of the truck with my hands on a chain link fence, spread for, because he said I was being insolent. Now, if anyone who knows me, I don't ever raise my voice. I'm not insolent in any way. And on that occasion, I was literally frightened for my life.
Yeah, and I can say the same, being brought up in Oneida, that I never had a bad experience in Oneida. In fact, I still remember the Oneida policeman field days when you're a little kid and they gave you out the little tickets and you went down to Vets Park and you had the whole day. That was a good memory. But But once I got out of Oneida, and got stopped I've been stopped a few times while while I was an officer, and I never told the trooper that I was an officer until it came to a point where I probably should, I gave him my ID, and finally he said, well, why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? And I said, well, why did you treat me like this? You didn't have to treat me like, now your whole attitude changes now that you know that I'm a police officer. So I started to imagine, had I not been a police officer, what this trooper would have put me through over some type of simple motor vehicle, what he perceived as a simple motor vehicle infraction. So Black people on the whole, and America doesn't understand this, but from the time we're born, we're scared of the police. We're scared of the police. I'm sorry to tell you that. My parents came up here from down south, and they had to take there's a book called the Green Book, and you can get this book online at Amazon. It's the route that Black people take during the 60s to come north. Certain cities that they had to avoid to come north, to travel. And I remember as a teenager going out with my friends who were mostly white. And before I went out the door at night, and I was in high school at the time, Oneida Junior High School, and my mother would say to me, remember, you can't do what they do. Now, what she was saying to me is I couldn't do what the white kids did. I couldn't go and she would say, if you see any trouble that your friends are doing something, you walk away. And that's exactly what I did, because I had some friends who were a little wild sometimes. And as soon as it got wild, I walked away because I knew what my consequences were going to be. So these are things that I told my own son that, and this is something that Black people tell all their kids, whether they're male or female. You can't do what they do because the law will treat you differently. And that's ironic, that's sad, but that's the truth.
Yeah. One of the things that, as we've had this conversation, and one of the reasons we're even talking about this today, and we see this as an important message, is that there is such a separation in the minds of Americans, white versus whether Hispanic or Black, that our experience with law enforcement is dramatically different. And I find that the larger population, most white Americans, do not understand that. It's something that's foreign to their experience. They literally think you're making it up when you talk about it. And one of the things that did have some impact for me, as I spoke with people about it just this past summer, was to ask them, those that I knew had children, I said, did you ever have a conversation with your son about how to behave with the police so that he could come home safely? And you could see the wheels turning and them thinking about it. Wait a minute, I've never had that conversation. No. Then I said, well, all of us have had it. And if your parents didn't have it, the people down the street, I remember your mother telling me the same kinds of things. It's just part of our shared experience. And it's a much different experience than our white counterparts have lived.
Well, take for instance, you look at the Capitol thing here. It's just interesting how the police responded to those guys than what they responded to the Black Lives Matter. They made 14,000 arrests during Black Lives Matter. And I'm watching the whole thing on TV. I'm saying, wait a minute, how is this happening? How is this happening? I'm asking myself as a police officer, former police officer, how is this happening? And you see the clear distinction, because most of the officers saw themselves. Now, let me give you an example. One officer was being dragged, and he said that he thought he was going to die. He was a white officer. He finally said to them, I have a family. Do you know that they stopped dragging him and beating him with the American flag, and they got around him, a group of them, and took him to the front door and let his officers pull him in? What is that? Think about that now. What did they see? They saw him as themselves. It's interesting. It's just it didn't surprise me that it happened, that they gathered around him, all these protesters, about 5 or 6 of them gathered, and they took him to the front door where the other officers were trying to hold everybody back, and allowed the officers to take him inside. I have a family, he said. He was white.
So I have to go back to your comment earlier when we began our conversation about how hopeful you were and that you saw the fact that a new generation is now engaging with these issues as a positive thing.
I'm hopeful because I teach kids and not kids, students in criminal justice. And I'm hopeful because this generation is much different than any generation I've seen. They're smart, they're intelligent, they're witty, they're they just got imagination, they got heart. So I'm hopeful that they're going to move this forward. I admit I have some students who you wonder, you say, oh, okay, but you expect that. But most of the students I deal with, they're very positive, and they see the complexities that we're going through, and they see the difference that how people of color are treated versus people of non-color. That's why I'm hopeful for this generation that we have coming up behind us, because they want a better America. They don't want this. So when I see those people going to the Capitol, I don't think of them as a large percentage of people. I think of them as a small percentage of people. People say, well, 70, Trump had 70 something million votes, so 70 or 70 million racists. No, that's not true. Numerous people didn't vote for Trump solely because of what his racist views. A lot of them voted for they've been Republicans all their lives, or something simple as my 401k is bigger this year when he's around. But I don't believe that. I have hope, and I'm clinging to that hope.
I think I will maybe close there, but I will point out cautious optimism has been an intrinsic part of the African American experience since we got here. We always looked to a brighter day, a day when Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the Mall. He had a dream. You can't have a dream without some optimism. When he said that the arc of justice bends, the arc of the universe bends slowly, but it bends toward justice. That's cautious optimism. And I think all of us, our music, our performances, our love for this country, and I get emotional about this. When as a child, you and I sang, God bless, America, 'tis of thee. We didn't sing it with a different perspective. We love this country. Our fathers and our forefathers fought and died for this country. But recognizing our difficulty, and through it all, we have always believed that a better day was coming and that America would make the changes necessary to embrace the true meaning of its creed.
Before you close out, I want to commend your organization and what they do. I've been there twice. I took my son there when you had the celebration in Peterborough, and he really enjoyed it. We still have pictures, but all the people that are listening out there, part of the organization, I just want to say thank you, that you're not forgotten, that people appreciate you, and don't give up. There's hope alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Riley. I appreciate your time and the commitment that you made to speak with us today.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Mr. Riley and Max Smith for that educational discussion. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, both of our presenters have provided a reference list of sources with websites that you can explore to learn more. This reference list will be linked beneath the video in the video description. I will also invite you to fill out a quick survey linked beneath in that same video description, which will help us gather feedback about the specific topic. This survey will take you no more than 5 minutes to fill out and will provide us with valuable information that will help us in the formation of future presentations like this one. If you have any questions regarding the discussion itself, both of our presenters have made their emails available so that you may contact them with any questions or comments that you may have. Additionally, please do contact NAHOF with any questions or if you're interested in learning more about the organization and its work. NAHOF's contact information is available on the screen. Once again, I'd like to thank Max Smith and Mr. Riley for providing a program for Black History Matters. I would also like to thank you, the audience, for joining us on this educational journey. Please remember, we will be releasing a new video each day of this February 2021 that you can view on our website or on our YouTube channel. We hope you will join us at our next presentation. Thank you.